Beautiful
appreciate
set you have here.
You like the set?
You drink that booze, actually?
Yeah, that's real booze.
Do you drink it?
Sometimes.
Oh, okay.
A little bit. I have cigars back there. You want one?
No, thanks. I'm driving. What Donald Trump has showed, and when people step away and they really look at this, is you got to fight back.
I wish people knew Donald Trump, the person you're describing, generous to a fault, hilariously funny.
The Democrat Party is like an alien entity within our politics and always has been. What we need are people who speak the truth and can take on a Bernie Sanders. I have asked Bernie Sanders to come on TV and radio 100 times.
Never gonna
He's
happen.
a coward. We've asked AOC, coward. 1 hour on Life, Liberty, and Levin. Just 1 hour, right across from me. They won't do it.
All right, so thanks for hanging out with us, number one. Number two, today's guest is a very close, dear, personal friend. We have a history that most people don't know about that we're going to tell you about today. I think you'll find very interesting. And he's one of the smartest, brightest constitutional scholars in the country, as evidenced by one best-selling book after another. I mean, I have the list of books that we'll go through in the course of the show. And he goes deep in the paint about our framers, our founders, about the great philosophers behind their thinking that created the greatest country God gave man. With that said, you know him as the host of Life, Liberty, Levin on the Fox News Channel, also nationally syndicated radio star. I call him the Great One. I named him that. Mark Levin. Thank me. How am I?
Doing, brother? Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Thanks for hanging out with us.
My pleasure.
We
Beautiful
appreciate
set you have here.
You like the set?
You drink that booze, actually?
Yeah, that's real booze.
Do you drink it?
Sometimes.
Oh, okay.
A little bit. I have cigars back there. You want one?
No, thanks. I'm driving.
That's funny. You know, so we've been friends for how many years? Decades.
35, maybe?
A long time.
Long time.
Yeah.
When I had hair and your hair was black, I remember.
That's all true. So you know this, but whenever I do speeches, I like to do a little stand-up in between, and I think I'm funny. I'm not that funny. I'm not like, you know, Jimmy Fallon or Greg Gutfeld. I'm not that funny. But I like to do it. But the thing that gets the most reaction at all times is when I do you. And you know that I do this, and I go, well, how would Mark Levin respond to this? I'll be like, that's it. I'll say it. Nobody else will say it. There, I said it. That's it. I'm done. And you ask me, do I really sound like that?
Well, here's the thing. It's not that hard to do me. No offense.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to do me. But when I hear me,
Yeah.
I don't like it.
I don't like hearing. Nobody
like
does.
They don't?
I don't think.
Some people never shut up. I think they like to hear themselves talk. Yeah.
No, but like I hate to listen to the radio show. I hate to watch the TV show. I do because I think it's important that you sometimes, you know,
Analyze yourself.
But your monologues are epic, and you go deep and hard in history and the Constitution. We're gonna get to all of that in a little bit. You have been, though, a committed intellectual conservative. You've been part of the core conservative movement for a very long time. And I want to tell people a little about your history. I want you to tell us, actually. I mean, during the Reagan administration, I'm betting a lot of people that watch your show, listen to your radio show, may not know, you were the chief of staff to the Attorney General of the U.S., a wonderful man who I've gotten to know, Ed Meese.
And I was very young.
Yeah.
You know, I started out in the Reagan administration when I was 23.
Oh.
I got out of law school a little early, and I served in various departments. And then I wound up in presidential personnel. And when I was there, I would put together, for the first time, these loose-leaf notebooks on judicial nominees, like Scalia, like Bork, and people like that. Many of the federal judges who are retiring now are judges that I was involved in, and I would give it to the head of presidential personnel. And he would go into meetings with President Reagan and Counselor Meese at the time, and Jim Baker and these other guys. So President Reagan says, "Where'd you get that notebook from?" And the head of presidential personnel says, "My guy, Mark Levin." And I became very friendly with who would be the Attorney General, Ed Meese, and his staff. So when he went over to the Justice Department, I was asked if I would go over. I said, okay. And I became Associate Deputy Attorney General. And then over time, all the appointments at the Department of Justice would come through me. And I would go to the Attorney General, Meese, and pretty much whatever he wanted, he got. You had to clear him through the White House. And I would say, the Attorney General wants so, yes, sir, And one of the most remarkable people who came into my office just out of the blue who wanted to move from a career position to a political position was a guy by the name of Sam Alito. He was the principal deputy solicitor of the United States. He was a bureaucrat. And he comes into my office and said, "Well, what do you want, Sam?" "I want to switch to a political appointment. I support the president. That's what I want to do." I said, "Well, I got to get you cleared at the White House. So you need to write a memo for me on why you're a conservative. Because you're a bureaucrat and they're not going to like it." We were very tough. So he wrote it and it was very nice. So I sent it over there and I said, "We want to move him over." They said, "Fine." So long story short, when he was up for his slot for Supreme Court Justice, the memo comes up, written to Mark Levin. And I'm a bit of a lightning rod now. And yeah,
controversial.
It's the way it works, baby. So, and by the way, on that, you're only controversial if you stand for something. If you don't stand for something, you're not controversial. And the only people who call you controversial are the people who hate you. Other people appreciate it, to be perfectly honest with you. But that said, that memo, which you can look up even now, which is a great memo that he wrote, they used it at the hearing, and then media started calling into the Department of Justice and other places. So I called my old buddies, who were all assistant attorneys general at the time. I said, "Just be quiet. If anybody has a question, send it to me. Don't shoot from the hip because you don't know anything about the memo." And so I responded. We kept it under control. But that's how Sam Alito got a political appointment. And, from there he became a U.S. attorney, then an appellate judge, and now one of the greatest justices of all time.
He really is amazing. Did you spend a lot of time with Reagan, President Reagan?
He wasn't really that way. For me, I spent a good amount of time when I needed to, when I would come over with the Attorney General. Attorney General Meese is really my mentor in so many ways. He was under constant attack. This is why when I see the president coming into this attack, it just makes me sick to my stomach because I know what they're doing. They're trying to derail him. They're trying to undermine the election. They're trying to stop his agenda as president of the United States. They tried to do the same thing with the Attorney General. We had 2 independent counsel investigations going at the same time. I was in charge at Justice at dealing with all of it, including those 2. One was Iran-Contra, and one was called WedTech. Both phony investigations. But these guys have tremendous power. Imagine. And they had statutory authority back then, unlike this fool who was investigating President Trump. And so I had to deal with them. And they had like 40 lawyers. And I deal with the other one. He had like 40 lawyers. And they would fight over the same documents. So I was the mediator saying, okay, who gets what around here? And I set up a very important system to batch and to count. We used to call them batch numbers and other in the old days. Keep track of all the documents, mark down all that. Why? Because I knew they'd try and get us on obstruction if they found a document, because these people are evil. And so I brought in the head of securities, former CIA. I brought in the head of the civil division or the antitrust division who handled these big cases and everything to help us handle all the documentation, so forth. And I'm watching this prosecutor Walsh and the Iran-Contra stuff. And not to get too much in the weeds, just as an example of what I did daily. And Ollie North was testifying, and he was given immunity, partial immunity. And all the cabinet secretaries were being briefed on what he was saying. Well, that was a big problem, wasn't it? Because the independent counsel then would ask them, like my boss, Ed Meese, to testify on what they knew. The problem was this so-called Chinese wall had been breached because they had listened to and were briefed on what Ollie North had said. So they blew it. And that's what they used on appeal to get the case overthrown. It's not that they're smart. A lot of them are not smart. It's that they're vicious. And you need to try and be very careful, cover your tail, cover your boss's tail as best as you can. I had actually gone over to the Interior Department as deputy solicitor, the number 2 guy over there. I was having a grand old time. Mm. Then the Iran-Contra matter broke, and the Attorney General asked me to come back. So I got back into that.
It's funny because, ever since I was little, I would listen to the pioneers of talk radio. Some names you'll know, some names you may not know. But guys like Barry Farber, Barry Gray, later Bob Grant, later Rush. But when I lived in Rhode Island for 5 years, it was, Jerry Williams. Yeah. And David Brudnoy at night. And, Gene Burns was a great libertarian. He was a very brilliant guy. And these were the real pioneers of talk radio. Never thinking one day I would ever get behind a radio mic. We're going to talk about how you got behind a radio mic, and I think it's a great story. But I always described myself for years as a Reagan conservative. I would say now, if you ask me, because principles guide people, and my principles that I believe in have not changed. People say, "Oh, well, you're just a rigid, No, my principles are what they are, and I'm consistent, and I have been throughout my whole career, and I will never apologize for that. You've been the same way, but a Reagan, make America great again, conservative. That's how I view myself, because I think Donald Trump took this whole thing to another level, and obviously, he's a controversial figure, but he's done, I think he is going to go down in history as one of the most consequential presidents in not only our lifetime, the last 100+ years.
Every great leader is said to be controversial until 50 years later, when they're said to be great statesmen. Abraham Lincoln was controversial. Washington was controversial. George Patton was controversial. I can go down the list of the greatest of the great. Churchill was controversial. But when you really think about it, they foresee things. And they're trying to deal with them. They're trying to nip them in the bud. They're trying to expand where they need to expand, and so forth and so on. So they're going against the culture many times. They're going against the usual politicians every time. That's why when I see some of these rhinos and they're wringing their hands, if only Donald Trump would do this and that. And I thought to myself, if only you would be more like Donald Trump. Maybe we can get some more things done and so forth. Look at the Democrats. Look what they've become. Look at how they conduct themselves. Look at them attacking the Constitution, trying to put a man in prison because he's running for president again. It's sickening. And so if our response to that is we wear mittens or we wear boxing gloves and they play UFC or they put on brass knuckles, we're going to get slaughtered. And I think what Donald Trump has showed, and when people step away and they really look at this, is you got to fight back. And as for principles, people say you're rigid. Mm-hmm. You usually get that from people who are unprincipled, who are quislings, who are weak. No, we're fighting with people who have principles too, just the wrong principles. And our whole Revolutionary War was about principles. Our Civil War was about principles. World War II was about principles. When you go to church or synagogue, that's about principles. Principles are important. Facts change, so you have to apply them and so forth and so on. But do you believe in liberty or don't you believe in liberty? You believe in representative government or don't you believe in representative government? I go down the list. Principles matter, or they wouldn't be principles.
It's funny because when the Iran-Contra affair was happening, I had a contracting business. I wouldn't go to work, Mark, I stayed home and watched those hearings. At that time, there wasn't cable news like we know it today. There were not as many outlets. And I even remember recording them because I was so riveted by what was happening. And then that led me to call into talk radio shows, which led me to get my own show. In 1987 was the first time I ever got in front of one of these, and the light went on, and that was it. My life changed while you were actually living it. Kind of ironic. We've never talked about that.
No, that is kind of ironic. And that went on, that Iran-Contra investigation, for 7.5 years. And when I'll tell you a little story. I haven't really told anybody this. It's June, July, or August 1988, and there's a lot of pressure on the Attorney General to resign. One of the most decent men I ever met, one of the most ethical men I ever met while he was Attorney General. His son died in a car accident. His grandson died from SIDS. Just such moral and beautiful people. Always cared about the janitor, always asked. And so, President does the same thing.
Yeah.
People don't see this side of him, and it's too bad. He's the same way. When my father was ill, he sent me a note and so forth. And so he's the same way.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
I wish people knew Donald Trump, the person you're describing, generous to a fault, hilariously funny. He wickedly funny. Even he takes up more. He lives rent free in more people's minds than anybody I know, and it's always more tongue in cheek than they ever knew. And they just fall for it. They bubble and fizz like Alka-Seltzer and water. I'm like, I love every minute of it.
He lives life to the fullest, this man.
He does.
Whether it's in business, whether it's his private properties, whether it's
all of it,
a speech, whatever it is. The great thing about him, he doesn't know what a governor. You know, we all say, I don't know if I should say that. He says, I'm going to say it. It's so big deal. I remember when I was interviewing him on radio the first time he was running, and he said something about Hillary, and I said to him on the air, I don't know if you should say this. I said, why not? I say whatever I want. I said, okay, that's a different man. And he's right about that, as far as I'm concerned.
You know, it's
so
funny.
This meeting in the...
Yeah, good. No, go.
So this meeting, well, Meese decides to resign. He doesn't want to because he's an innocent man. But he says to me, I have to do this. I said, why? Because I don't want to cost George H.W. Bush the presidency. I said, because of his campaign. He said, I'm brought up at every single campaign event. I want him to run on his own. They were very good friends, and I don't want to hurt him. These are the kind of men I dealt with. Reagan, him, other cabinet secretaries, Hodel, I could go down the list. John Harrington, who was my boss at presidential personnel, became Secretary of the Navy. If I'm leaving people out, I'm sorry, but these are fantastic men, principled men. So we go to the Oval Office. He and Mrs. Meese, Ursula, and 3 or 4 staffers, including me. We go in there, and Reagan comes in. He's very majestic. And yet he's very funny, too. He's hilarious, too, very kind. You know, there's more Reagan in Trump and Trump in Reagan than people will believe. Because Reagan was very proper and so forth and so on, but he was very funny. But in person, he was much more, you know. Others came in, the vice president came in, the cabinet came in. Meese was incredibly highly regarded and respected, and everybody knew they were railroading him. And everybody knew why he did what he did. And President Reagan comes in, speaks briefly, and he looks to Ed and Meese, and he says, I'm sorry, because I know they're coming after me. They can't get me, so they went after you. That's the kind of people we're talking about here. And Ed Meese today, he's in his 90s. He's wheelchair bound. And I want to thank President Trump for giving him the Medal of Freedom in his first term. Many people deserve it. He certainly did. And Donald Trump didn't have to do that, but he did it.
He also did it to our friend Rush.
The Rush. Well, we wouldn't even be here but for Rush, would we?
Totally agree. I said when he passed, nobody can replace him. Nobody. And but then I added, I know what he would want. And what he would want is for all of us to carry on the mission that he kind of started. He forged this path that we all could go through. And we could talk a little bit more about him in a second.
And we were all best friends, just so people...
Oh, I have a great story about you, me, and Rush.
We always spoke together, worked together.
Oh, no, this is going to make you look horrible. If you want me to... I don't know if you want me to tell you want me to tell a funny Mark Levin story or no?
Well, if it makes me look horrible, by all means.
This is a great story.
Uh-oh.
Because it's only you being you, and it... You know, I think people get this image of you that just isn't real. Like, I'm going to talk about your books. Your first book was Men in Black. I remember interviewing you for Men in Black. Your next book, this guy over here that is on the air, and I'm going to tell you one other thing. That guy has a heart of gold. You love dogs. And you wrote a book, Rescuing Sprite.
That's right.
I've spent more time on the phone personally with you talking about dogs and when we lose our dogs and how upsetting it is and all of that. And you write this incredibly tear-jerking book about a dog you rescued, Sprite. And in that book, too, correct me if I'm wrong, you talked about the first time you had a bad heart issue. And I remember reading that because I lived through that with you. And that was hard for me. And it's like there's this other side of Mark that I want people to know. I forgot what I was going to ask you now at this point. Oh, the funny story. Okay. So we were at Rush's for lunch once. Do you remember this?
Not really.
It was in Palm Beach, right here in the free state of Florida. Okay. And we go to his house. He has a beautiful home. And we have lunch. You don't remember this?
Now I remember. Yeah, okay.
You know where I'm headed?
Go ahead with the wine. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's one of the great Mark Levin stories of all time. And so Rush opens this like 1961 expensive bottle of wine. And I remember...
I don't drink.
Well, that's a point too.
Yes.
Okay. And the bottle had turned.
Yeah.
Meaning you can't drink it. And then he asked, I try to do my Rush imitation. It's like, Sean Hannity would be nothing without me. But he was always tongue-in-cheek. He was one of the funniest guys we knew. Anyway, guy goes to get another bottle of wine. I know I'm not supposed to ask this. Do you get a refund on that? How much was it? You remember that?
I do remember that.
And it was funny, and Rush loved it. He loved the fact that you were you.
Well... There's another guy, if you knew him personally. They hated on him.
Oof.
They tried to destroy him. They tried to push him out of radio. He was very philanthropic behind the scenes. Again, very funny. And, those primaries for the Republican Party.
Yeah.
He was Trump. And I'll tell you why I think so. Right out of the box. Because they had overlapping characteristics, too. Rush was out of the box. He did things differently. One of the smartest people we ever knew, 1 semester in college. Why? Because he was too smart for college.
Boredom.
He was totally bored. He knew what he wanted to do. He would listen to these liberal professors. What the hell am I doing here? Of course, disappointed families, you can imagine. And he went one job after another. He told me he's fired 7 times. But he did things his way, didn't he? His way. Doesn't that remind you of Trump? He does things his way. And I think, and I've talked to David, his brother, about this too. He was another great guy.
Yeah.
He agrees with me that he identified a lot with President Trump and the way President Trump lived and conducted himself and so forth. His personality, he didn't like being in a box. Actually, none of us like being in a box. Some people are happy. They got a job for 38 years, and that's it. I can't. It just doesn't work with me. But it works with a lot of people, thank God. But it didn't work with Rush. It doesn't work with the president. Doesn't work with you.
You know, it's the one thing that he had was just this unique personality, this wicked sense of humor. I mean, the stuff that he did in the early days of his syndicated show, you know, over time, he came under such fire. I don't know if it was conscious or not. I never asked him. But I think he had to tone it down a little because in real life, he was wickedly funny.
And he could only rely on a couple of us to defend him, you and me among them. Because we know the enemy. We know who's trying to take Trump out. We know who tried to take Rush out. We know who's tried to take me out and you out and others out. We know who these people are. They're not earnest. They're evil. They don't want to debate. They're not interested in ideas. They're interested in power and victory. That's it. And people need to understand that's the mindset that our president is up against. It's okay to disagree with the president respectfully, but if you're trying to sabotage him or undermine him, poor guy's got more stab wounds in the back than you can possibly imagine. Why? Because he brings people in and he embraces them and he relies on them and he's loyal to them. And then all of a sudden, right, they turn on him.
I don't think there's any one human being, number one, who lives rent-free in other people's minds, who's as wickedly funny as he is. And the media doesn't want to understand him. They don't want to, like, if you want to know where he stands on Iran, listen to what he's saying. Mm-hmm. They can't have nukes. We'll get into that. And they don't want to know where he stands. They don't care. But I want to get back to you a little bit because you have this keen intellect.
It's embarrassing, but that's all right.
No. I mean, I remember, I go back, the first book you wrote all these #1 New York Times bestsellers. And then the one, Rescuing Sprite, shows this heart of gold, which I wish, like they don't understand Trump's humor or Russia's humor. They don't understand your heart either. Because by the way, if you want to have a bad day, get in a fight with him, because he is unrelenting. He will not stop, and it cracks me up. I'll like, man, you're on fire today.
In fact, you are an instigator, but that's a whole nother story.
I'm not an instigator. If you write something that's funny, I'm going to laugh. I have a good sense of humor. You wrote Men in Black, how the Supreme Court is destroying America. You wrote one of your best-selling books, biggest, and this really catapulted you, correct me if I'm wrong, was Liberty and Tyranny, a conservative manifesto. And then you wrote Ameritopia, the unmaking of America. Then you wrote the Liberty Amendments, which is another, restoring the American Republic. Then you wrote, Plunder and Deceit, Big Government's Exploitation of Young People in the Future. Then you wrote Rediscovering Americanism and the Tyranny of Progressivism. All of this, ripped from today's headlines in many ways, and we can learn from all of them. I've read every one of your books. Unfreedom of the Press, American Marxism, relevant. We're going to talk about all this. The Democratic Party hates America. You're very, very soft-spoken in your titles. On Power. All huge best-selling books, Mark. But here's the difference. This is where I've learned from you, and I actually owe you, I want to say thank you, because I've learned a lot from you. And I read your books, and you have studied our framers, our founders, and beyond that, the great philosophers that influence them. And I'm going to shut up in a second, I promise, for those of you at home saying, shut up, Hannity. I would be at your house, and you're in the middle of writing a book. Imagine this whole set, and then on the floor, every square inch full of research papers. And that's you, the amount of work you put into your books. It's mind-numbing. But I want you to talk about, where did this passion for liberty, America, the Constitution, our founders and framers and the philosophers that inspired them come from?
I'm not 100% sure. I think you either have it in your heart or you don't. But I will tell you, as a very young guy, I used to watch firing line with Buckley. I used to watch Milton Friedman, Tom Sowell. These are brilliant men. I think the first book I read and almost memorized was Conscience of a Conservative by Barry Goldwater. It's actually Brent Bozell's father wrote most of it. And I just couldn't get enough of it. And, you know, I was a C student in, now they call it middle school, junior high school. And then I really started getting into history, more and more the American history. And we lived outside of Philadelphia. So my buddy Eric and I, we would take the train into Philadelphia, and we'd walk about a mile or two from then Reading Station. Today you'd probably get mugged, but we walked and we go to Independence Hall. We would spend hours there listening to the park rangers, touching where the greats were, walking down the paths, the original cobblestone paths. I just couldn't get enough of it. And we must have done that 50 times. We took the train to Washington, D.C. We would sit in the gallery. Back then, there was no secret, nothing. And so I'd sit in the Senate gallery or the House gallery with my friend 5-6 hours. Maybe I was 14 years old, 15 years old. Today, the world's different. Today, you can't let your kid do these things so easily, but we did. From 30th Street Station to Union Station, and we would do that all day and come back late at night. My father would pick us up, drop us off at the train station. And I said one day, I'm going to be a senator. And everybody thought I was going to be a senator. I said, I even know the state I'm going to move to, Nevada. Because I had some relatives there. And me, in my mind, I was thinking, there aren't a whole lot of people there. And most of them, a lot of people there are not native to there. I'm going to be a senator. And then as I got older, I was in law school. I ran for the school board and I won. And I had started a group called the Committee for Tax Limitation. And we had a revolution there. I don't mean, like today. I mean a tax revolt. It's picked up by the Philly. So here's this guy, 19, 20 years old, had become the youngest school board member in the state of Pennsylvania on this platform of no new taxes. And I had this following that I created with the Committee for Tax Limitation. I'll tell you something funny. Cheltenham Township back then, outside of Philadelphia, the Jewish population was in the center, and the Gentiles were on the ends. And mostly German on one end and Italian-Irish on the other end, and I'm the Jewish guy in the middle, and I'm the most conservative guy there. So the guys on the township board, when there was this tax revolt, in the other ethnic communities, begged me to go in with them and campaign for them because I was the most popular guy in the German community, the Italian community, and the Irish community, and the least popular guy in the Jewish community in my neighborhood. But I won by a very significant landslide. And so I was on there with the votes. There were 8-1, 7-2, 8-1, 7-2, battling the teachers' unions and everything else. Complete support from my family. So to me, this may seem odd to you. Back to Trump and Reagan and Rush and you, quite frankly. There's a thing we have, and I think tens of millions of Americans have. We want our freedom, and we want to do things our way. And there's so many restrictions and regulations and do's and don'ts that are unnecessary. And so I do things my way too. You do things your way too. You do a lot that people don't know about for this republic. In your way, we talk about this. I do it my way. It's a 1-2 punch in many ways. Don't tell everybody what we do.
No, we're not talking about it.
But that said, we approach it in different ways, but we coordinate a lot. And I would just tell people what I say on radio. These are very grave times, what's going on in the streets. what's happening with the anti-Semitism like nobody's ever seen before, anti-Americanism, the importation of people who hate us, hate our country, will not assimilate, bring a whole different culture and not a pleasant culture into our country and so forth. The rubber's hit the road right now. But there's still tens of millions of us who know that, who reject what's taking place. And as long as we talk to each other, stay united, organize, push back, clean out this ruling class, bring in a new ruling class that has the guts to do what a Trump does or a Ted Cruz does or several other people do, we can save this republic. And so now more than ever, we started off with principles. Principles matter. Now more than ever. History matters. Even though it's being taught less and less, we need to push it at the breakfast table, at the dinner table. I feel we do a great job of that on conservative talk radio, and I think we do a great job of it on Fox, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to stay on our mission, double down, and push back even harder. But I want, because you have a massive following, I want people to know that there are people who agree with you, who want to fight, are fighting for you, and that you need to do the same thing.
All right, I want to be honest. Hearing loss is something a lot of people just don't like to talk about. It can be frustrating, embarrassing. You know, maybe you're turning up the TV too loud and people are, saying, why is it so loud? Or asking people to repeat themselves, or you're sitting in a restaurant nodding along in a conversation. You're not hearing what's being said. I've been in radio since 1987. I know a thing or two about hearing loss. Everybody in radio, they lose their hearing to some extent. Now, a lot of people felt like hearing aids would make them look old. Audion, they've changed all. Look at this. Look at this. They've changed all of that, making hearing aids modern, discreet, and you know what? Kind of cool again. If you have them, nobody will even know you have them. They have a sleek design, actually multiple designs. They look more like headphones than old style hearing aids. And they're making them very affordable. That's good for everybody. Audion was founded by 3 grandsons who wanted to help their grandparents hear better. So instead of costing thousands and thousands, Audion hearing aids, they start at $98. It comes in this beautiful box, this beautiful case, and it's incredible. And by the way, $98, no prescription, no huge markup. You order all of it online. It ships right to your home, and you can start hearing better tomorrow when it arrives. Audion helps you be connected again, hearing your family clearly, not having to say, what? Who wants to hear that every day? Anyway, 1.5 million Americans now use Audion, and they keep telling their friends that have hearing loss, you're going to want to try it. Anyway, get your hearing back at audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com today. I keep telling people on radio and TV, this is the most important midterm election in our lifetime. I've said that about other elections. I have. Guilty as charged. This one is it, though. And I think there's so much at stake, and I want to get into what is at stake. You know, one interview in particular that I had of you with one of your books, you said to me, and you said it in the book, we live in a post-constitutional America. I remember hearing it, and I found it jarring, but the more I thought about it, I realized how true it is. And how unfortunate it is. I think this president is trying to restore us to constitutional order. And the opposition against him, and I recently had Kash Patel on this podcast, and Dan Bongino, and Todd Blanche I've had on this podcast. And I mean, what they have done to try to destroy this man for 11 years, Mark. Are we in a post-constitutional America?
We are, in many respects. I mean, as an example, the way we pick senators was never intended to be this way. With the 17th Amendment to the Constitution, direct election of senators, try and reverse that now. The states were supposed to have representation in the upper body, the Senate. And by the way, it's called the upper body because when you go to Philadelphia Independence Hall, that was the Pennsylvania Assembly House. The Senate met on the second floor and the House met on the first floor, the State House and Senate. So the Senate's the upper body and the House is that, just a little footnote. But yes, in many ways we are. And the irony is that people who are trying to destroy it keep waving around the Constitution as if they're standing up for it. So when they attack Donald Trump as a dictator, I just shake my head. Coming from Hakeem Jeffries, who wants to destroy the independence of the judiciary, who wants to destroy the United States Senate, they're trying to pack the Senate, pack the Supreme Court, destroy the House, and pack the House of Representatives. These people are anti-constitutionalists. And in many respects, their ideology, and I've written about this for years, is utterly incompatible with Americanism. I've started to write and say years ago, the same with Islam, the same with Marxism, and the same with the Democrat Party. When I wrote that book, The Democrat Party Hates America, was the thickest book I ever wrote, and it could have been that thick. Seriously. Mm. And that book was banned in some stores, by the way. They wouldn't put it, I'm not going to say which ones, because they've been good to me since. But people had to ask, do you have this book, The Democrat Party Hates America? And they get looked at funny, in a funny way. I once said to Rush used to joke about Liberty and Tyranny, which was the biggest conservative book this generation. And he said, and you can read it in public, as long as you carry it around in a brown paper bag, that sort of thing. And by the way, as a footnote on that, when I was getting into radio, I said, Rush, what am I supposed to say? There's you and there's Hannity, and then I'm third. You know what he said? But nobody's heard from you.
He's right.
Nobody's heard from you. And I want the audience to know how much Rush loved Sean and how important they were to each other. Very, very important to each other. And when they were together, they had a blast together, Not that they got drunk, but they both drank a little bit. I don't drink. I drink a Diet Coke, which drives my wife
I could tell another funny Levin story.
All right, what is it?
We're at a dinner.
I didn't know there were any.
I think they're funny, whatever. At dinner, it was me. Rush was not at this dinner. Me, you, Bill O'Reilly was at the dinner. O'Reilly, another friend of ours who I won't mention, Geraldo, were there. The four of you and President Trump don't drink at all. And me and Geraldo had like a glass of wine. We weren't drinking a lot. And I remember saying, so none of you drink? I said, of all the people I know on earth, you four need to drink.
Yeah, no.
And you laughed. But I want to get back to this. This is a post-constitutional America. I was going to save this for later because we're talking about the midterms. There's a couple of things I observe here. You're right. I think we're a country now that is so divided. I don't care what the issue is. You have the Democratic Party of today has been so radicalized. I remember when I wrote Deliver Us from Evil, defeating terrorism, despotism, and liberalism.
Great book.
I came under fire for that title. And they go, you're comparing us to despots and terrorists? No, I'm saying if we don't kick your ass in the election, then you're in charge and you're going to ruin the country. And that was the whole point of it. And I could only tell you, look at it. They want sanctuary cities and states. They want open borders. They want defund, dismantle, no bail. They just voted for the largest tax increase in history. They put up with, tolerate, even incentivize, virulent anti-Semitism. It's in the halls of Congress. It's on college campuses. It's growing worldwide. I can't think of, I don't know what the middle ground is if you're going to have a debate. You have to win the battle politically.
The reason the country's divided is because the vast majority of American people don't want to be dragged into Marxism, economic socialism, and anti-constitutionalism, which is where the Democrat Party wants to drag us. Hakeem Jeffries burped it up, and he's burped it up ever since, and now they're all repeating it. To get a little philosophical, Montesquieu, who was the most important philosopher during the constitutional period, not the only one, but he was very succinct and profound in the way he said it. Republicanism, not Republican Party, republicanism is about power checking power, separation of power. Centralization of power always brings tyranny, always, no matter how somebody thinks how beneficent a dictator is. And so when you look at our Constitution, it is separated everywhere. We don't have a Congress. We have a bicameral legislature. We call it Congress. So we don't even have a parliament. We have a House and a Senate. Every 2 years, direct election. They're the only ones directly elected. Why? Because your rights under the Declaration come from who? God, not your fellow citizens. And they knew that a majority could vote to take your rights away, that a majority could vote to imprison you, that a majority, that's called mobocracy. Aristotle called it mobocracy. So they said, we can't have mobocracy, but we need the consent of the government. We need participatory government. So we'll do that. Now the Senate, because the states created this national government, they need to be represented in this body too. So we'll have these senators, and they will be representing the legislatures. 2 from each state. If we really want to get into the weeds, I'll explain why that's the case. So 2 from every state and the House. That's the Congress. The biggest debate they had was over this presidency. Should there be a council on which he's a member that oversees him? And it went back and forth because nobody ever created a presidency. And they decided on what we have today. And then, of course, the courts. They thought that would be the most benign, but they left it to Congress to create all the courts except the Supreme Court is created in the Constitution. They didn't decide how many members there should be and so forth and so on. And then they said, okay, but we need to be very specific about what powers they have because the states rule. So you have Article 1, Congress, Article 2, the President, Article 3, the courts, roughly speaking, and they need to be fighting each other with separate powers. This comes from Montesquieu. Actually, it comes from Locke and others too. But Montesquieu was the clearest about it. And he said other things that are important. He's not the only one again. The greatest danger that a republic faces is from people who righteously demand that they can impose virtue. Because there's no end to a righteous person who thinks they know virtue and wants to impose it on everybody else. They were concerned about things like that. C.S. Lewis wrote about that. By the way, people say, what do you do in your free time? I read. That's what I do. I can't help it. I'm a nerd. So, although I'm a UFC nerd, I have to admit that. Mm-hmm. Right? 100%. All right, so anyway.
You knew about UFC way before anyone else.
I was watching them fight in the deserts.
Yeah.
Before there was a UFC MMA, where they put chicken wire around, and they were fighting in Nevada, some 400-pound guy against a 130-pound guy. And I'm going, why am I attracted to this? I can't stop watching. So you turn your head when but I couldn't turn it. So 6 hours straight, I'm watching, just sitting in the chair watching. I have a book here. So in the commercials, I'm looking at the book, then I'm watching these guys fight each other. I don't know. It's just me. So
you're a gladiator.
So here's the thing. The Democrats don't appreciate all these things. They view them as obstacles to their power. When you listen to Bernie Sanders, who's a leading Democrat, he's a communist. He's been a communist his whole life. He never denies it outright. He had the flag with the hammer and the sickle outside his office for a period of time when he was mayor of Burlington, Vermont. Everybody knows what he is. Everybody knows what AOC is, the Democratic Socialists of America. Oh, very clever. Think we can't figure out that you're communists? Spend time in communist countries and so forth and so. When do they ever talk about free markets? When do they ever talk about capitalism? You know what capitalism is? It's commerce. That's all it is. Nobody invented it. Commerce is spontaneous. You want something, you make it. You want to buy something, you buy it. It's as old as mankind. They had to create communism. It came out of somebody's head. Utterly defective in every respect, a defective approach at human beings. We're all going to be equal. No, we're not. equal under the law? Yes. Equal in every other respect is a disaster. It's a disaster. We're individual human beings. It's funny, the people who talk about we need to be equal, they're all very powerful. They're all very wealthy. They claim to be elites. You know, they're authors who write things and so forth. They don't want to be the janitor. They don't want to be the bus driver. What do they mean equal? In Cambodia, 25% of the population was slaughtered. 25% of because we had to get equality. So where does it end? Two people in a rice field, rice paddies? If one has a little more in their basket than the other, that's not equal. And so forth and so on. So the Constitution seeks to protect us, even though there wasn't communism at the time. There was other stuff at the time, Hegelism and Rousseauism. But the Constitution tries to protect us from the mob and from the monarchy, the dictator. So there's the consent of the governed, but you don't get a say in everything. The individual has a right to live and do what they wish. And by the way, if you have a grievance, there's different levels of government that address it. So the Constitution is the most brilliant governing document. It was done in 5 months in a hot summer in Philadelphia. And these men had studied British history, French history. Many of them had memorized what they called the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. Many of them were very faithful Christians. You know, they talk about Franklin and Jefferson as being deists. That's still Christian. They just did claim they didn't have an answer to everything else. The Constitution itself is based on Judeo-Christian principles fused with the Enlightenment. And the Enlightenment comes from Judeo-Christian principles. This is a long way of saying they're all under attack right now. The Democrat Party is like an alien entity within our politics and always has been. Here we have the Declaration of Independence, and they fight for slavery. They fight for segregation. The Republican Party was founded in the 1850s as the abolitionist party. Somehow now the Republican Party is viewed as the slavery party. You know, it's propaganda. They supported eugenics. In fact, and I write about this in The Democrat Party Hates America. In fact, Hitler got a lot of his ideas in eugenics from a lawyer in particular who was a Democrat who wrote a whole book on it. And it was the first book, American book, English book, that he had translated into German. This whole idea, these Democrats are going about Jim Crow, they are Jim Crow. And it wasn't a long time ago. It was 50, 60, 70. They're Jim Crow. They're Jim Crow too. They still won't give up on this race stuff as opposed to a colorblind society. Now they dismiss that, which is another book I wrote, American Marxism, and I get into that too. So the point is this. We have people in this country who have a lot of power, who lead the Democrat Party, who hate the Constitution, who hate our economic system. The only system that works with a constitutional system is the capitalist system, because economic socialism and cultural Marxism reject the Constitution. They must. They can't work together. It's impossible. Which is why they say we're going to control the courts, we're going to control the Senate, we're going to control the House, we're going to control. But don't worry, we're going to deliver you anything you want. It's going to be equal. It's going to be nirvana. Every dictatorship says that. And, you know, Jefferson said you could have tyranny of the legislature. And the Democrats are tyranny of the legislature. All right, I'm rambling, but anyway.
No, you're not. I mean, it's making... I think this gets to the underpinnings of what this philosophical divide is. And people don't talk about it very often. But really, you mentioned a couple of things. Rights come from God, not from government. We're endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. I'm not giving out cliches here. I'm getting to a point. And where I see the clash is that there is a clash between those of us that believe in freedom as a natural right from God and the natural state that God put us in. You know, the word education in Latin is educere, to bring forth from within. That means God put it there. if you believe God, I believe like you do, Judeo-Christianity and those principles built this country. And if we abide by them, I think we continue to prosper. But to the greater point is you have those of us that want freedom, that believe in the individual, that believe rights come from God, that God put talent in every individual. I believe all of that. And then you have those, like, for example, the Squad and the New Green Deal and cradle to grave, womb to tomb. Correct me if I'm wrong. Whatever form, whatever name, whatever manifestation, communism, Marxism, statism, socialism, whatever form it's been tried in, you always get the same results. Unfulfilled promises, more poverty than when you started, and then when it's all said and done, you calculate the loss of freedom you gave up in the name of false security. Right or wrong?
100%.
You say it more eloquently than I do.
Because their ideologies reject humanity. But they're spoken in compassion and emotion. You see, when a Mandami gets elected, affordability, and it takes like 10 minutes to unravel what the moron is saying. Affordability. Affordability. This is a guy who was 34, 35 years old, who never worked in his life. His parents are millionaires. They're also radical kooks. It's just an ideology. It's just an emotion. Why do you think they keep attacking billionaires? Billionaires, no offense, in the big scheme of things are irrelevant. Why do I care if there's 500 billionaires or 50 billionaires? They're not taking anything from me. In fact, most of them are producing things that we want and need, or they wouldn't be billionaires. And billionaires are not a class. Everybody's different. What if they create a medicine that we need and they save lives and help people? Or what if they're investing your pension monies in a way that your money's protected or it grows, or 1,000 different ways? Why do I need to listen to some flunky who came out of college indoctrinated about Marx? And I can get into him one day too, about Marx. And suddenly they know everything because they've learned 5 slogans. They've learned 5 slogans. They're sloganeers. And they know how to manipulate the language. They know how to use propaganda. That's it. Substantively, they're completely empty. And they're really cool. You know, they're revolutionaries up against the system. As they use an iPhone, as they wear chic clothes, as they get in a car. That came from capitalism. Every damn thing they have has come from capitalism. Or commerce, as I call it. Commerce, spontaneous commerce. The problem with Marx is that nobody really has read him and they all think they understand him. He was a lunatic. And the reason he was a lunatic, he was completely wrong and his ideology was defective about the human being and human nature. For Marxism to work, this can't work, the brain. Because what is liberty? And what is capitalism? It's the exercise of your brain. You develop things, physical labor, intellectual labor. Hey, that guy's got that. I'm going to improve that over there. Or that guy said that. I don't agree with that. Well, if you're not allowed to say certain things, and you're not allowed to think certain things, and you're not free to do certain things, and everybody has to be equal, that's anti-humanity. In fact, it's inhumane. And that's why every Marxist society, and to some extent socialist societies like Britain and France, become police states. Because the people get in power, get more and more power, control more and more of the individual and more of the economy, because it doesn't work. And so what do? They double down, triple down, 1,000 times down. Tighten, tighten, tighten. And they can't have people who are challenging, because that challenges the whole thing, the whole reason they have for existence. So Marx's view of human beings is completely defective. And he was a lousy human being himself. He relied on his father, who was a lawyer, who subsidized him. He played the stock market. I played the London stock market. He was very protective of his daughter. Even though he writes in the Communist Manifesto, we need to eliminate parental controls. Now listen to this. I think the American people will best understand it this way. He said every single social structure needs to be destroyed. He said religion is mysticism. The family unit is destructive. It prevents the individual from exploring their self and so forth and so on. Of course, the iron fist of government doesn't, right? But that said, why do you think parental rights are under attack? It just happened. It's in the Communist Manifesto. People don't read the Communist Manifesto. It is, you must destroy the nuclear family. Why do you think they talk about transitioning 5-year-olds and so forth and so on before they're even mature enough to know what they want? Taking parents out of the decision process. Our teachers' unions are hardcore.
Sure.
They're hardcore. So you destroy the family unit, you destroy the family social culture, you destroy the church and the synagogue and so forth and so on. You should destroy all these things so you're reliant 100% on the state. It's like Bernie Sanders with health care. Everybody has a right to health care. Well, what the hell does that even mean? Okay, I have a right to health care. Everybody has a, does it mean I get it? Does it mean I actually get medical care? No, but you have a right to. Okay, great. How do I get medical care? Do I get to see whatever doctor I want to see? Do I get to see whatever? They never tell you that, do they? They just say, everybody, it's a human right. Okay, what about the doctors? Are they enslaved to the state? Do they have human rights too? What about the nurses? What about the people who change the bedpans? So at my beck and call, they all have to show up anytime I need them, or the pharmaceutical companies have to produce whatever I tell them to produce. How does this work? They take the most complex systems, healthcare, energy production, other industrial production, and they apply their ideology to it. Not knowledge, not experience, they apply this defective ideology to it. And that's why these fail. They don't work.
I can give you examples. Look at what government does and ask yourself, and I say this all the time, what does it do well? How are your kids' schools, public schools, government-run schools? How are they doing? How are your kids? I mean, we pay more per capita per student than any other country in the industrialized world, and we have the worst results. I mean, spectacular failure. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, headed towards insolvency. That wasn't the promise of government. And I can give other examples. What was the promise of Obamacare? Keep your doctor, keep your plan. Average family pays, on average, $2,500 less a year. Okay, millions lost doctors, millions lost plans, and we're paying about 300% more on average.
And it's poisoning the entire healthcare system. Because of that, the prices are way up.
Yeah, of course.
Your choices are way down. And the guy's still running around, Obama, like he knows something, giving his comment on everything, even though nobody asked him for it.
No, we don't care. But you're saying something that's very interesting. And this is where I think we almost have to teach people to embrace freedom. That may sound silly. But in other words, this is really the choice that I think the people have in this country. And AOC made the comment recently about billionaires, and they didn't make that money. I'm like, well, if you create a product that people want, need, and desire, you can't force them to buy that product, and people buy it, and they become wealthy because they created a good or a service that people want, need, desire. Good for them. I never got a job from a poor person, Mark. I say that all the time. And then versus this false security of, we're going to give you kids, our government schools are so good, now we're going to give them free daycare. We'll start indoctrinating them then. And then government guaranteed job, government guaranteed health care, dental care, retirement, guaranteed government healthy food. I don't want their healthy food. I want my healthy food. No, thank you. I'll make my own choices. They don't believe in freedom. And here's the problem that I see, and I want you to comment on this, and I worry about it, is there's something appealing to taking away people's, quote, natural stress or fear in life, which is, and I live paycheck to paycheck in my life. How am I going to pay for my rent? How am I going to get a new car? How am I going to send my kids to school? How am I going to save for retirement? What if I want to take a vacation? So there's a natural stress of life. They will give you false security. They do nothing well, except, I would argue, maybe national defense. And even there, they squander money like crazy. They do nothing well with the worst track record. Every other system that's been tried has failed. You chronicle all of this. But there's some appeal to some people. We're going to take their money. You're going to empower us to take their money because there's more of you than them. We're going to give it to you. And meanwhile, now you're dependent on us. And if you want anything, you got to keep electing us. I see nothing but unbridled corruption, ambition, and power in that model.
Well, you're right. And that's why the government's supposed to be limited. That's why in many ways I say we're in a post-constitutional period. The boundaries were broken, starting with Wilson, even a little bit with Theodore Roosevelt. But Wilson for sure, and then the New Deal. And that's why there were constitutional battles over that. Really, the New Deal was a fight over socialism and capitalism. And the history of the Depression has been so perverted, and now some professors have written over the years and corrected it. Milton Friedman corrected it. But so you have that propaganda. I say this. Go into a supermarket. Go into a big supermarket.
Go where?
To a supermarket.
I go every week.
I'm talking about generally, rhetorically. Yeah. Go into a big supermarket. 50 types of meat.
Amazing.
Hamburger meat. You want 80% fat? Fat-free? 90%? 95%?
93.
You want organic? How many pieces of chicken can you get? You can get legs, you can get breasts, you can get this, you can get it roasted. $7, $8, $10. Okay. Just the whole case full. Then when you're done there, go to the fish section. You want little shrimp or big shrimp? You want cooked shrimp? What do you want? What kind of fish do you want? We got it in here yesterday, 2 days ago. 10 different types of fish. Now then move into the vegetable area. You got more vegetables. They got so many new apples, I don't even know the names of all the apples. You got apples, you got oranges, you got this, you got that. It's coming from, Botswana and California and Kansas. Okay, great. Now go into the fruit section. 10 different types of tomatoes. And would you like it cut up or not cut up? And we've mixed it. Or you want hot food? Just listen. Now go into the bread section. 6 grains, 12 grains, 14 grains, Hawaiian bread, American potato bread, this roll. Okay, done.
Pretty cool.
Now let's go into the dairy section. Oh, we got almond milk, oatmeal milk. We got 2%, 1%, 0% whole milk, lactose-free milk. Thank God for somebody like me. You got 14 different types of orange. You want it with pulp, without pulp. Okay. Go into the bakery section. You want cupcakes? You want cookies? You want cakes? What do you want? You want tarts? You want wow, that's very cool.
You make tarts these days?
And what about, oh yeah, I don't even know what it is. I just say it. So how about wines? Oh man, Virginia wines and California wines or France from France. Do you think there's a socialist country on the face of the earth that has our supermarkets? And here's the thing. Anybody can walk into that supermarket. Let me be clear. We live better than any king or queen ever lived in their life 100 years ago. The average American has an automobile. The average American has an apartment, a condo, or a house. Average American. The average American has access to everything I just said. So the price goes up, and we act like it's the end of the world. You go to a communist regime and tell me if they even eat every day. Or a socialist regime. And you have these fools like AOC, who's an economic illiterate, pushing her ideology, saying people, where do people think that came from? Farmers are not working for the state. The people who package the food are not working for the state. The people who truck the food or bring it on rail, they're not working for the state. The people who unload it, they're not working for the state. The people who put the stuff in the shelves, they're not working for the state. The people who work the registers, they're not working for the state. How do you improve that? And most of these guys have a 3% margin that own these grocery stores, 3 to 5%, and that's it.
Actually, I think it's 2 to 3.
Whatever it is, it's
tiny.
It's tiny. And so why would we take ideologues who've done nothing with their lives, who produce nothing? And let's say there's a billionaire who's created 50 of these stores that have, congratulations. Maybe he should be worth 10 billion, 20 billion. It's not taking money out of my pocket. It's not taking money out of anybody's pocket. The government is taking money out of my pocket. In Minnesota, they're blowing it. In Ohio, they're blowing it. In California, they're blowing it. $250 billion, according to the GAO, every single year we're getting ripped off. But if I go into that grocery store, supermarket, and I buy an apple, I'm buying an apple. It's an exchange. There's my money, there's my apple. It goes to government. I don't know where the hell it's going, who it's going to. All I know is they want more and more and more of it. And they can't even, except for Trump, secure the border, make sure we're protected in the streets, and so forth and so on. So what we need are people who speak the truth and can take on a Bernie Sanders. I've asked Bernie Sanders, my people have, to come on TV and radio 100 times.
Never going to
happen. He's a coward. We've asked AOC, coward, 1 hour on Life, Liberty, and Levin. Just 1 hour, right across from me. They won't do it. Of course they won't do it, because they're used to having people, interview them like at CNN or somewhere like that. Yes, Bernie, healthcare for all. Well, what does that mean?
That's a pretty good imitation.
It's not hard. It's like your gut's bothering you.
Yeah. This is now, I don't think there's ever been a more, this is the greatest choice election time in our history. Think about it. Open borders, sanctuary cities and states, defund, dismantled no bail laws.
Iran,
they've become, I think, the party of anti-Semitism. They're aided by some bizarre isolationists that don't understand the Trump doctrine, which I want to talk to you about. And this is the biggest choice election. Now, James Carville said the quiet part out loud, and you refer to it earlier. And that is, if they get elected, they will pack the courts, D.C. statehood, Puerto Rico statehood, and they will want power in perpetuity. Now, we already know what they'll do with it. Look at what they put Donald Trump through the last 11 years. I hope the grand conspiracy charges against him, against those that were responsible for weaponizing our justice system. You work for an attorney general. I hope if we don't solve it, if they're not held accountable, it will continue. But this is to me a demarcation. This is it. And this is the country we're going to hand off to our kids and grandkids. Not about us anymore.
It's a great point. Let me take a piece of that. The justice system. Retribution, they say. So when you hold scoundrels accountable for what they've done, that's retribution. No, that's justice. I, as you point out, worked in the Department of Justice for many years. What was done to Donald Trump has never been done in American history. He's almost like the Dreyfus of the United States. To set him up, and we barely know anything. All this stuff's going on behind the scenes, under the radar, but they were conspiring. The federal government with state prosecutors, local prosecutors, they twisted the special counsel appointment clause. Thank goodness we had a real judge in Florida, Attorney General Meese and former Attorney General Mukasey, and I might say Landmark Legal Foundation, which I was affiliated with, and also the president's great lawyers. The case was overwhelming that he was appointed unconstitutionally. And so he was thrown out. But why did they pick this guy from The Hague? Because he's a thug, in my view.
They fear him.
They fear him, and he's used to really using, an iron fist and things of that sort, like with the Tea Party, apparently, and with the governor of Virginia in the past, and things like that. He had, in my view, a very horrendous record of abuse. And they wanted him. Big time. Go after Trump. But here's the problem. the judges failed us, except for that one judge. And judges are helping now because they're looking back on it on the appellate level and go, whoa, 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 what took place here? Mm-hmm. But in Washington, D.C. in particular, you had Obama judges and Biden judges and Clinton judges, same on the circuit court. People don't realize that circuit court, Harry Reid and Obama conspired to add additional judges to that court so they could take it over. They did on that court what they want to do to the Supreme Court, and you see the consequences of it. Rubber stamping the most outrageous conduct whatsoever. To send a SWAT team to Mar-a-Lago? That was so preposterous and outrageous. The constitutional question, I know where I fall on it, the president declassifying documents. But at the best, it's a close question. So you're going to send a SWAT team down there, grab his boxes, take pictures of it, go through the first lady's clothing and all the rest of it.
And by the way, they had already been there, had access to it, and
it wasn't going anywhere.
Wasn't going anywhere.
Wasn't going anywhere. But the abuse of power, the charges that they brought were so Mickey Mouse and preposterous.
34.
But the statutes, to use the 1871 Klan statute, gee, they weren't stretching, were they? To use the obstruction statute with Enron, which they threw out, and I told her they're going to throw every one of these damn things up because look what they've done. Look what they did in Atlanta. Look what they did in New York. We have never seen anything like this in 50 years. When real people, real serious people step back and look at it, they're going to write about this as a calamity. It was a calamity. This is who these people are. Even the extent of trying to take them off the ballot, twisting the 14th Amendment into a pretzel, all these other things that they've done. And this is what they hope to do again. If they take the House of Representatives, they hope to take the Senate. They've already told us Jamie Raskin is a radical leftist. His father found the Institute for Policy Studies, co-founded it, which was a hard left, and many of us argue, Marxist organization that was on the wrong side of the Cold War and everything. That's his father. Every effort to take out Trump, first to stop the Electoral College vote the first time around, then these impeachments, pushing for resignation, pushing to keep him off the ballot. Raskin's been behind all of it. Mm-hmm. The same cabal, Schiff, Raskin, I can name them all. This guy Goldman, Dan Goldman from New York City, the same little crowd trying.
A congenital liar.
They are liars, and then they try and present themselves as righteous. We're defending the Constitution, we're defending the rule of law. We're defending the justice system against this brute, this thug who's going to destroy everything. Donald Trump has complied with every single court order that's ever come down. And where does he duke it out with them? In the courts. And when he loses, he doesn't like it, like the ridiculous tariff decision on the Supreme Court. But he didn't say, you know what, I'm not going to follow it. I'll find another way to deal with it that meets the ridiculous standards. He follows the law. They leaked his taxes. Who leaks a president's taxes?
Oh, his whole family.
The whole family. And what did they find?
Organization.
What did they find? Nothing.
That he made money.
That he's
legally.
A great capitalist.
The worst was the 34 counts, legal NDA, put together by a lawyer, even unbeknownst to him, according to the lawyer. And they come up with a novel legal theory. You're the legal scholar.
But here's the thing. So those people should get away scot-free. So those people shouldn't be held to account. So those people shouldn't be investigated. And if they did something that is provably criminal, charged. Because that, you see, is retribution. No, that's justice. If you want to put an end to the kind of corruption, I mean deep corruption. They took that Justice Department, which I love, and they turned it into a hit squad. And these disgusting prosecutors and judges and so forth and so on, they're human beings. They have flesh and blood. Some are evil, some are great, right? That's the nature of the beast in every walk of life. But guess what? It's also the nature of the beast when it comes to people like this at the Justice Department, prosecutors, and unfortunately, some of these judges. And we've seen the carryover with these Biden and Obama judges throughout the country trying to block Trump's agenda and having to be overturned by the Circuit Court and the Supreme Court, which is why the Democrats want to take out the Supreme Court, replace it with a Democrat Politburo. One quick point. When FDR tried to stuff the court, the Democrats blocked him. The Republicans wanted to block him, but he had supermajorities in both houses because he'd won this. The Democrats stopped him. You know who led the fight? His vice president. His vice president had been Speaker of the House before, and he was a moderate Southerner. And the vice president, as you can imagine, wasn't on the ticket the next time around, but he was on the ticket the first two times. He, leading Democrats in the Senate Judiciary Committee voted it down. They controlled the Senate Judiciary Committee, but they got it out of the committee to the Senate floor, and 70 senators, and there weren't even 100 senators back then. We didn't have Hawaii and Alaskans, voted it down with a majority of the Democrats voting against it too. The Democrats today, this Hakeem Jeffries, he is a political thug. That's what he is. What he says, then he's trying to reach into the Virginia Supreme Court to change the age limit from 75 to 54 to blow out all this. This is tyranny. This is a totalitarian mindset, which brings us full circle, doesn't it? They don't believe in the Constitution. They say, we're going to protect the Constitution. I say, which Constitution? What country? It's clearly not ours.
All right, if it feels like everybody's sick right now, guess what? You are not imagining it. Now, doctors say this is the worst cold and flu season in 25 years, and it's not even over. Now, I just went out to dinner with friends, and it was like everyone coughing, sneezing, sick, or they'd just been sick. They're just getting over being sick. I can't afford to get sick. I doubt you can either. Now, you see this here? This is why I ordered the emergency medical kit, and many of my colleagues have it too. You've seen Dr. Drew, Dr. McCullough. They have this kit on their show. It's called the Wellness Company Medical Emergency Kit. Every home should have one. Having a medical emergency kit, that's like having an urgent care pharmacy right in your home. Look at this. Look at that. It includes essential prescriptions, generic Z-Pak to help you get well faster, plus very important antibiotics. And for example, for pneumonia, strep throat, sinus infection, nausea, UTIs, many more common and serious illnesses. Now, it's all in the kit. The moment you need it, no waiting for your doctor, no hoping your pharmacy is open, no hours at urgent care. That's the worst thing to do in life. No lines at the pharmacy, no copays. Just match your symptoms to the right prescription in your guidebook, or just call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Now start on your meds and feel better faster. It's genius. Every home needs at least one medical emergency kit. Order yours now online. They'll ship it to your house. Now, I can save you $45 when you use the promo code Hannity. Go to urgentcarekit.com. One word, urgentcarekit.com. Again, save $45, promo code Hannity, urgentcarekit.com, and you will be healthier and prepared. You know, I look at, I'm listening to everything you're saying. This is why I tell everybody the importance of this midterm election. And, you know, I don't know how this is going to play out. If you ask me today, I don't think the issues that will define the outcome of this midterm have even happened yet. We got to see how Iran plays out. We've got to see how gas prices recover. We got to see, I think the president laid an incredible foundation in his first year, in his second term, in terms of the economy. Largest tax cuts in history. That worked for Reagan. It worked for him in his first term. Energy dominant policies. He has more committed trillions of dollars in manufacturing. He's bringing back automobile manufacturing, pharmaceutical manufacturing, semiconductor chip manufacturing. Scott Besson says, you know, as soon as all of this now is coming online, high-paying career jobs will follow. You see people got the largest tax refund than they've gotten in a long time, less withholding. I think all of this now is going to start to kick in once the Iran issue goes away, which is where you and I are in full agreement with the president. We've both been attacked for supporting the president. Every single source I have, and I have a lot, I talk to a lot of people, you talk to a lot of people, all told me the same thing. The people that would know, not people off the street, people that would know, have access to information I don't, all said to me the same thing. The president had no choice. And for some reason, we've gotten to a point in America, I don't expect the legacy media to ever support Trump. I don't expect the radical Democrats led by the Squad. And the only reasonable Democrat left is John Fetterman. Only one, to me. Mm-hmm. And I never expected them to support the president. And then the president sees that, okay, Steve Witkoff gave a defining interview with me. He was on your show too, I know. And he said, oh no, they had 460 kilograms, that's nearly 1,000 pounds of 60% enriched uranium. In less than 12 days, they can enrich that to 90%, that's weapons grade. Okay, so everybody I've talked to, unless you don't believe Steve Witkoff, who I believe, they all said the same thing to me. The president had no choice. The president had no choice. Either that or we leave our children and grandchildren a nuclear-armed Iran. Now, number one state sponsor of terror. Death to Israel, death to America, all of the above. Had no choice. I completely agree with it, and I'm going to get into how they don't understand the Trump doctrine in a minute, but you have been fighting with a lot of people over this. I have no patience for stupid, to be very honest with you, and I don't really care what these people have to say, because the president has moral clarity. The Prime Minister of Israel has moral clarity. And this idiocy, he did it for Bibi, he did it for Israel, he did it for Mark Levin, he did it for Sean Hannity and Fox News. I'm like, you don't know Donald Trump if you believe that. Just dumb on top of everything else.
Okay, a couple of things. Number one, the president looked at what was presented to him. Who thinks he wanted to do this? It's so counterintuitive. It's so preposterous. Even now, he doesn't want to keep hammering them. He wants to look for a way not to if we can get some resolution, okay? Who are these people? They're nobodies. Some of them I look at, they haven't done anything with their lives. They're not successful. They're either politicians or broadcasters, and that's all they've ever done. You've done other things for your life, your living, so have I. Sure. Most of them have not, and they have failed, and they're disgruntled. So they're always looking for a niche. They're looking for eyes. They're looking for clicks. They're looking for hits. Some of them are looking overseas. As for the Democrats, I wrote the book, The Democrat Party Hates America. Trump can't win no matter what he does with these people. So we get in a debate. It wasn't imminent. Like they know what's imminent or what's not imminent. Okay, it's not imminent. Now, what does that mean? The way I look at it is it was preventative. That is, we want to make sure they don't get a nuclear weapon and use it. Whether it's in 1 minute or 1 day or 12 days, what's the difference? The point is, you can't know with any kind of precision in an atomic world with hypersonic missiles and other capabilities. Well, they didn't have one. Yeah, but the Chinese have one. And they have ballistic missiles. And now we know they have ballistic missiles that can hit Europe. We didn't even know that 2 months ago. So intelligence is good, but it's imperfect. So we're going to sit around and debate whether an Islamist, Nazi, genocidal 7th century regime, which has killed and maimed thousands of Americans, which claims it wants to destroy the United States of America and the West, we're going to debate on whether it's imminent or preventative, whether it's tomorrow, the next day, or the next day. You're the president of the United States, you get information, and you have to act. It's not a debating society. It's not a white paper. It's not about politics. when it comes to nuclear weapons and a terrorist regime, these are suicide bombers with a nuclear weapon. That's the way I view it. And the people who are attacking the president or us or whomever, they have no concept of what we're dealing with here. They don't understand the mindset.
It's Islamofascism.
It's Islamofascism.
It's a death cult.
And they are prepared to die as long as we die. They have imams, they have scholars, they've had people who have written for 100 years, even more recently, since the 60s and 70s, who talk about destroying the West. That for the 12th imam to reappear who's hiding among us, who will bring us prosperity and equality, in other words, a good Marxist.
Any chance it's you?
No, I'm not an imam. That's all right. Not even a rabbi. So the thing is, you have to eliminate all opposition. Now, they've taken that to mean humiliate, torture, imprison, rape, defile, and slaughter. And that's what they do. That's what Iran does, the regime. That's what Hamas does. That's what Hezbollah does. That's what the Houthis do. Do we need evidence? You know, this isn't theoretical. It's happening. It's a fact. And the fact that they cannot have a nuclear weapon, or the president says nuclear dust, the remnants, the material, shouldn't even be debatable. And particularly with the Democrats, since Obama gave them a pathway in 10 or 12 years that literally have a nuclear weapon. And Biden funded it by lifting sanctions for 150
So did Obama.
This is the Democrat Party. This is their record. And some of the Republicans, while they didn't do that, they were trying to look in the other direction and so forth. Well, Trump's doing something about it. The only discussion now is how do we end this thing? And that discussion can be a legitimate discussion. But the difference between the woke right and the Marxists and the Islamist left is that they want to use this as an opportunity to exploit, to destroy the president, to destroy MAGA, to destroy the Republican Party. If I have questions, or you have questions, or somebody else has questions, that's called normal. And you discuss these things. Should we negotiate with them to bring this to an end? Can they be trusted? How can they be trusted? They've never been trusted before. That's not who they are. That's not what they believe. And hammer them, which has consequences. Or do we make the very best deal we can, hope we can contain them, have some enforcement mechanisms and so forth? I'm at the front end. Others are at the other end. That's a legitimate discussion. But that's different than undermining our military in the field. That's different than giving aid and comfort to the enemy with propaganda and comments. That's different than trying to obstruct our effort to defeat this regime's, efforts with the War Powers Act, which I know is unconstitutional, which is why the left never brings it to the Supreme Court. They just say it is. That it is a illegal war. We're dealing with mental munchkins here on the Democrat side. They'll throw out anything and say anything they want, and they have no idea what they're talking. It doesn't matter. They all say that it's like the chorus line. They're like ugly Rockettes, if you will, dancing across the stage. Oh, left leg, right. They all say the same thing and do the same thing. And here's the other thing. You made a point earlier that was very important. That is, people don't want to believe in certain things. And in this case, they don't want to believe that any regime would potentially use a nuclear weapon against us. And their experience is that they haven't. My experience is we've never been hit with a nuclear weapon. And I live relatively safely in America in the sense that we haven't really been attacked, although the Islamo-Nazis attacked us. That's the irony of it. But, nobody has fired missiles into our country. Nobody has sent tanks into our country. That'll never happen. It's never happened. It's never going to happen.
9/11 never happened.
And some people weren't even alive. So they don't even think about it. It's like the Holocaust never happened. It's out of sight, out of mind. And World War II never happened. They don't even know the battles of World War II. They don't know the battles of the Civil War. They don't know the battles of... I live today and I know everything today. So when the Democrats play into that and they say it wasn't imminent, this was a choice, it's illegal, don't you wish the gallon of gasoline was $1 cheaper? Yeah. Now that I can identify with. I go up, I fill up my car, it's $4 or $5 a go. That's crazy. I shouldn't be paying that kind of money. Okay, it's a lot of money, got it. So when you compare that to, of course they're not going to use nuclear weapons against us, because my experience is it doesn't happen.
You know what it's like to me? Some of these people, they're at a gaming table. They're willing to put all their chips in the middle and just assume that those that have been the number one state sponsor of terror, that want the death to Israel, death to America crowd, that they're willing to gamble with their children's lives, their children's
they were
future,
putting all of our
grandchildren's.
Yeah.
Okay, so they put their chips there. Here's one thing that frustrates the hell out of me. Actually, two things. I'll go to one first, then I'll go to the other. They distort and pervert the Trump doctrine. I think I can explain the Trump doctrine very simply. No, he does not believe in forever wars. Just doesn't. This won't be a forever war. It's not going to be. I can look in the camera and assure everybody watching it's not going to be a forever war. Probably ends sooner than later, and it's the hard way, the easy way. I think the president's been clear. He's thinking about the 90 million plus people in Iran that have suffered for 47 years. But it's going to come to an end. But forever war does not mean no military force. As evidenced by Donald Trump wiped out the ISIS caliphate. Never got the credit he deserved, but he wiped the whole thing out that grew under Obama and Biden. Donald Trump dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan. Donald Trump took out the world's number one terrorist, Soleimani, on a tarmac. He took out Baghdadi and associates. Midnight Hammer, he dropped 14 bunker buster bombs on these nuclear facilities that the Iranians had, because he's been crystal clear, consistent since before he was ever president, and I have the tape to prove it. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. Okay, they distort that into being, he just got us into a forever war. He said he wouldn't have military excursions. Well, circumstances are what they are. That, to me, I find frustrating, because they're purposely distorting, lying, propagandizing, whatever term you want to use, what the president's past conduct, actions, and philosophy is. He is not an isolationist, Mark.
No. If you're an isolationist,
you're dumb.
You're dumb, but you're an ally of communist China, an ally of fascistic Russia, an ally of every terrorist regime and group in the world, because they're counting on you. They're counting on you to make sure that we don't take steps to protect ourselves short of defending ourselves on the continental United States. Now, how stupid is that? And Ronald Reagan called it Fortress America, which will destroy America. You're talking about ballistic missiles, hypersonic missiles. You're talking about massive delivery systems. You're talking now about nuclear weapons, things that travel even faster than the speed of sound. And you've got these fools who have no background, who spend their whole lives really doing very little, telling us this was a war of choice. To me, they will be proven for the fools that they are. But in the real time, we have to protect ourselves. The Democrat Party's been consumed with this because the Marxists and the Islamists lead that party. The isolationists will not lead our party because we're going to make sure they don't. And so they're out there all by themselves trying to undermine the president, trying to now say, let's vote Democrat. And if we lose the midterms, somehow it's the president's fault and the fault of the people who want to secure this nation. So what I was saying earlier was what the Democrats do and these woke right types do and the Marxists and the isolationists do is what they do when it comes to the economy. Affordability, equality sounds great and so on. Iran's not going to hurt us. It's okay. It wasn't imminent. He did this to take attention off of this side or the other. It's not a big deal. But you paying $1 more, $2 more for a gallon, now that's real. And we're going to put an end to that. My only issue is this. How do we end this? And that's where you can get into some rational discussions. And I think the president wants to hear rational discussions. What he doesn't want, what I don't want, what you don't want are cheap shots trying to undermine his presidency in the middle of a war, of all things. And my only view on this is that regime can't be trusted.
You know,
they're terrorists and they need to be eliminated. That's just Mark's view. I'm not the president.
Did you sit in the Oval Office and lobby the president? Because I didn't. No. I've been accused of it. I never told the president what to do. By the way, it's so stupid. If you know Donald Trump, he will listen to everybody. And I actually like the fact.
What is wrong with that?
That he listens to all points of view, and then he makes up his own mind based on information Americans don't have to.
Here's the thing. One of these poltroons went to the White House repeatedly to make his case and failed. I didn't go to the White House to make any case about this war. And I said to the president, Mr. President, I'm being accused of lobbying you. And he said, Mark, he laughed. He said, first of all, you don't have to lobby me. I watch your show and I know exactly where you stand. I watch it Saturday and Sunday. So I know what Mark Levin's position is if I want to know what Mark Levin's position is. And whatever I would tell him in private, which isn't much, is exactly what I would say in public. There's no surreptitious thing going on.
You're a commentator, Mark.
I know.
You're a talk show host.
The Israelis aren't behind it. The Jews aren't behind it.
Oh my God.
And I've about had it up to here with these gutless, coward Jew haters and anti-Semites.
A lot of them.
Let me just tell you something. That's why they're now attacking Christians. They're promoting Sharia law. They're trashing the Republican Party. They're saying vote Democrat. These people are poison. It's happening all over the world. They're grifters. And they are just vile human beings. And I say human being sparingly.
I've taken many trips over the years covering Israel. I've been in the terror tunnels. I think I was one of the first people that they have ever allowed access to go in it. The level of sophistication, and they have a network, hundreds and thousands of miles of these terror tunnels. By the way, money that was given to them to build hospitals and schools and infrastructure for the people in Gaza, for example. Did you ever see the tape of the IDF of October 7th? I begged Israel.
I saw a little bit. That's it.
I've seen it all. I've seen the longer version.
The president, too. I've seen it.
And there have been people, I'm like, why don't you make this public? I know it.
I've said the same thing.
Make it public.
But I'll tell you why.
Let me tell you what it is. Yeah. Murder, rape, kidnapping,
debauchery,
beheading, all on video. And then all these people kidnapped. Now, here's the other thing. On the many trips to Israel, not only did I see these terror tunnels that are built just to, so that Hamas could get into Israel undetected to kill Jews. But then I went to a border town with Gaza called Sderot, which I'm sure have you ever been there?
Yeah.
Kids can't play outside. They play in underground playground bunkers. They don't get vitamin D. They can't play outside, which is a horrible way to live. I went to the local police station, and I saw each iteration of missiles that they recovered. That one city, over the 10-year period before I went there, maybe it was 2015 at the time, I'm trying to remember the exact year, they get larger and larger and more deadly. I was there one day, came back the next day, and a neighborhood, they call it a kibbutz, as you know, was hit the night before. The shrapnel max is to kill and maim and create maximum amount of damage. I saw it. I'd gone to a restaurant the day before, come back the next day, and there was a bombed out cars in the parking lot, rockets. I was next to the Iron Dome when it took off. Since it's, the UN partition plan put in place, they've been under attack since the next day. It's a country the size of New Jersey. One of the things I like about what the president is doing here is that he would have the countries, and he even said Iran, recognize Israel, for once have peace in this region. Maybe that would last, I don't know. He doesn't have the reputation as a peacemaker, but he really seems to want to do it. But it frustrates me. This is the evil in our time that existed before. I'm going to add one other thing, and then for those of you at home, I promise I'll shut up. I want your take on it as a historian. I see the president learning and adopting 3 lessons of history. One is, in the last century, over 100 million human beings were killed. Mao, China; Stalin, Russia; Hitler, Germany; Mussolini, fascism; Tojo, Japan; Pol Pot, the killing fields. Over 100 million people, it's estimated, somewhere in that number. If that's not human evil, I don't know what it is. There's no other word I would use to describe it. And the president seems to understand if you can neutralize, and I hate Hitler analogies, but it fits here, Nazi analogies. If you could have neutralized Hitler and taken him out before he killed all those people, would it have been the right decision? Because I think this is applicable here. If I'm wrong, correct me. I think the president also understands what Reagan taught: peace through strength, trust but verify. I think he's applying that here. And I think the president has also learned from, we can't get into these quagmires. And this will not be a quagmire. It's difficult. It's hard. The world is a safer place without a nuclear-armed Iran. And we owe it to our children and grandchildren that we don't leave these Islamo-fascists with nuclear weapons.
Well, a couple of things.
I defer to you.
Let's talk about Hamas, where you started. They had enough money to build a very almost modern country, city. But that's not what they wanted, was it? They wanted the elimination of the Jews in Israel. They work with Iran. Iran doesn't want just a country. Iran is a revolutionary Islamist murdering machine. It's not comfortable with just being in Iran. That's why it was surrounding Israel with Hezbollah, with Hamas. That's why it has the Houthis. That's why it tried to attack us here. That's why it's building missiles to reach Europe, and then they hope the United States. The only way to stop Hamas is to defeat Hamas. The only way to stop the Iranian regime is to destroy the Iranian regime. They're not going to be comfortable. They don't care what the West tells them to do. We are a bump in the road from their fundamentalist perspective. We're the bump they have to eliminate. And so from my perspective, could be wrong, having now studied exactly who they are, who they follow, what they say, they may create obstacles to a deal. They may not even agree to a deal. But in the end, they're not going to comply with it, especially when Donald Trump leaves office. And on our side, the Democrats won't force them to comply with it if they have a Democrat president. And certain Republicans won't force them to comply with it. Why? Because it will require the sort of things Donald Trump has done with the military to try and stop it. The problem is they've learned from the last several months. They're going to get smarter about tactics. And this is why I have the views that I have. But here's the difference between Donald Trump and all the rest of them. He's earnest. He's courageous. He's trying to do the right thing. He's getting certain information from envoys, from the Secretary of State, from this country, that country, whatever. You don't know. We don't know. And he's trying to make the decision. Plus, he has to deal with domestic issues. What will the American people put up with? To some extent. And so those are the things he has to weigh. But as an outsider looking in, I just know that regime is not going to stop being that regime because we tell it to stop, especially after Donald Trump has left, any more than Hamas plans to stop or Hezbollah. And the most dangerous weapon they have right now are these ballistic missiles. And they're now quite competent in building them by the thousands with the fuel from the Chinese. That's what the Arab countries fear the most and Israel fears the most right now. And that's why they want that addressed. Israel must be free to take on Hezbollah, or that little town you visited will be blown off the face of the earth. And it is unsustainable for a democracy to not be able to take action to defend itself any more than it is for us. You can't depopulate 1/3 of a tiny country and tell everybody to pull back because a terrorist group is firing missiles in and you're not allowed to go in and wipe them out because we have a deal with Iran. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying that's something that needs to be paid attention to. The reason they hate Netanyahu, the same people that hate Trump, is because they're similar in some ways. They love their countries. They want to defend their countries. They need to strengthen their military, and they need to deal with reality.
I want to then follow up with this because we see the rise of anti-Semitism worldwide. We see it on college campuses, the halls of Congress, the punditry class. I mean, I never thought it would be like this in my lifetime, but interestingly, on college campuses, they talked about Gaza. Not a word, not a protest, not one about the Iranians being slaughtered in the street for daring to want what we discussed earlier as freedom. Then I look at Europe and their reaction to all this, and I see Europe as a continent in precipitous decline, and they have adopted radical climate alarmism, socialism. They have neglected their defense, and the worst thing that they've done is they've had unfettered, illegal immigration without assimilation, resulting even with close to 100 Sharia courts in Great Britain and no-go zones in France and other parts of Europe. I don't know if that continent can recover.
Europe has given us great things. Magna Carta, representative government. It's also given us Hitler, Marxism. Mm-hmm. It's a mixed bag. And so when John Locke wrote his great treatise about the Enlightenment, we call it, and so forth and so on, he was asked, where does that exist? He said, in America. It's a clean slate. Didn't have a feudal system, didn't have this, didn't have America. As you can imagine, the monarchy hated him because he was talking about representing government. He was talking about the civil society and all the rest of these things. Europe, in many respects, is dead. The question is whether they can come alive again, whether life can be breathed into these civil societies. The left in Europe allowed this to happen, and some of the weak ones on the right. The left in the United States, with open borders, not only allowed this to happen, wanted it to happen. Why? Power. See, the Democrat Party doesn't care where it gets its power from. It wants power. If it's Islamists and Marxists, so be it. People say the Islamists and the Marxists are taking over the Democrat Party. No, they've taken it over. They've taken it over. If you're an Islamist and you want to get elected, you're a Democrat. If you're a Nazi and you want to get elected, you're a Democrat. If you're a Marxist and you want to get elected, you're a Democrat. The Democrat is open to all takers. Which is why somebody like Alan Dershowitz said, wait a minute, I'm 87 years old. I don't have a lot of time left, but I'm going to spend every waking hour fighting this party and trying to defeat it. Which is why the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, a leftist, said, I'm leaving the Democrat Party. I can't be part of this party anymore. I got to get out of this party. I'm an independent. I can't do it anymore. Remember, Reagan said the Democrat Party left him. He didn't leave it. I wonder what he would say today about the Democrat Party. My parents, my father, World War II. I wonder what I'm just glad they don't see what's going on in this country, from the anti-Semitism to the, listen, the people who burn that Israeli flag in the streets are burning the American flag too. Let's make no mistake about it. And the Islamist terrorists who have secreted themselves into this country through various groups, CARES associated with Hamas and so forth, they're not fighting Israel in the United States. They're fighting the United States. They want to take out the United States. They want to get elected to our Congress. They want their members, CARES says, on the Supreme Court, on our courts, and it's working. You had a Muslim Brotherhood meeting the other day, was recorded. They praised certain of these podcasters. They attacked Shapiro and me. They probably didn't attack you because you're not Jewish. They'll get around to you. They'll get around to you. They'll get around to everybody.
I've been attacked my whole life. I don't care.
But they're saying it's working. He says working. We're not fast enough. There's more to do. But we're destroying MAGA. We're dividing MAGA. And they are being welcomed by the Democrat Party. You have a few voices out there. A few congressmen. Few senators, mostly Republicans, Fetterman, and so forth. And then you have people like Bernie Sanders, who embraces the Democratic Socialists of America, who embraces CARE, who embraces these people. You have Tlaib, who is one of them. I don't mean by ethnicity. I mean she's one of them by ideology. Ethnicity, too, as it turns out. You've got a whole cabal. It's a growing movement within the Democrat Party, and a Democrat Party that's talking about the institutions of constitutionalism that they want to destroy. Can you imagine? If they destroy the barriers against power and bring these people in, there's no stopping it. There's no stop. If we can't go to the Supreme Court to stop something, there's nowhere to go. And if they can destroy the filibuster, pack the Senate, pack the House, it's over. And they're doing it through immigration.
The biggest lie that we've ever been told. We're kind of running out of time here. I don't want to, take away too much of your time, but I will tell you that is the future. I would just urge everybody that's watching this to pay very close attention to what people are saying. When I wrote Deliver Us from Evil, Mark, defeating terrorism, despotism, and liberalism, you have to win the political battle.
Ahead of its time, your book. You deserve kudos for that.
It's not as deep or as profound as yours. I learn a lot from yours. But I will tell you something. I figured out it's hard for good people to wrap their minds around evil. We don't want to believe it. But evil's all around us. What do you call a child molester? What do you call somebody that would just throw somebody into a subway in Mamdani's, New York? Just an old man, just push him on the tracks so he can die and things like that. How do you see President Trump's, this is my last question, President Trump's time in office? How will it be viewed through the prism of history as a historian?
He's going to be viewed as a tremendous, historic, great president. As somebody who sees the decline, who talks about it all the time with Biden and the Democrats, who did something, certainly no modern, I don't think any president's ever done. He's reached into the culture, not just politics. Whether it's DEI, whether it's open borders, whether it's school choice and education. He's taking on all the elements of tyranny, almost all at once. He's reached into the culture like no president I've ever seen to try and breach the decline and the deterioration. That alone, I think he will be viewed as one of the most tremendous presidents in American history. I truly do. And it took a man like him, who didn't come up through the normal political process, have to kiss the hands and all the rest to get, one up the other. Just like Reagan, he became governor out of nowhere, and then he became president, even though they tried to stop him multiple times like they tried to stop Trump. But Trump is different in a good way. And people may get frustrated because they're not used to the way he does things, or they're not used to the approach. But look at the results. Look at what he's trying to do. Look, here's what I know. He loves America and he loves the country. There's some people in politics, maybe too many, who don't. They're looking to push a revolution to turn us inside out. He's trying to push his movement to protect us and to bring back what used to be. I'm a tremendous fan. I know you are too.
The great one, Mark Levin. Thanks for hanging out with us, buddy.
This is fantastic. God bless you, brother.
How do you like my little man cave?
I like it, but I don't see any Diet Cokes up here. It's a big letdown. No, it's beautiful.
We got a full bar there. You can have whatever you want.
No, it's great. And let me just say this. You don't edit it out.
Oh, boy.
There's no friend like you.
I feel the same way.
You're like my brother. And I want you to know, we talk a lot offline. The advice that you give, your belief in the country, I want the nation to know it's 24/7 with this guy. Everything he does things you don't know. And he does things for the betterment of the country. And it is such an honor. This has been a long time now. We've been friends a long time. And you don't get the accolades you deserve.
I don't want any. I'll tell you this. We live in the greatest country God gave man. Amen. And I think we've all had undeserved lives. I know I speak for myself.
We're blessed.
And we are blessed. Blessed to have you hanging out with us. The great one. Thank me.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys so much for watching today's episode, hanging out with me, Sean Hannity. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel so you never, ever, ever, ever miss an episode. We've got a lot more great, really great content coming your way. We hope you'll subscribe.